I just noticed, look at the Marquis de Cat behind us.
Forky's knocked over.
Forky. Hello everyone, welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about
board games.
And
spooky games.
Exactly. 'Tis still October. Halloween is but around the corner. And so today we are bringing to you our top 10 games for Halloween, our top 10 spooky games. Call it what you want. Call it what you want to. That's a Taylor Swift lyric. Jeff and I have each picked a list of 10 games that we think are our favorite. Obviously we think that because they're our favorite games for spooky season.
Not in any particular order.
No.
And also, I picked some games that I normally wouldn't pick.
Really?
I
spiced it up a little?
Spiced it up a little bit.
Okay, you got a little spicy with it? That's fine by me. I'm going to have one honorable mention, which is actually would be my number one, but the reason that it's my honorable mention, for anybody that doesn't know, I've recently started a new position with Van Ryder Games, who you may recognize from games such as Final Girl, my favorite game of all time. Not a sponsor, but I am employed by them.
I mean, anyone that has seen our channel knows that Jamie loves Final Girl and has loved Final Girl long before she became an employee of Van Ryder Games.
Yes.
But unfortunately, going forward, we're always going to have to state this fact.
But just know, the reason why I didn't end up putting Final Girl on my list is because it's my number one game. It is my number one spooky season game. It's my number one non-spooky season game. It just is, but it is a perfect Halloween time game, just as an FYI. So if you're like, Jamie, where's Final Girl? Where's it on the list? Well, that's where it is. And I'm very excited about my new job. So we have a list of 10 in no particular order. So let's start off. Jeff, what's the first game on your list?
I'm going to start with, I think, one of the obvious ones, which I couldn't have a list without mentioning these two. So these aren't the spicy takes. But the first one's going to be Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition.
That's also on my list. So why don't we just combine these ones?
Sure.
Yeah.
We've talked about Mansions of Madness a ton. Mansions of Madness, not only just like Final Girl for Jamie, it's not only one of my favorite spooky games, but it's also one of my favorite games in general. It's thematic, it's fun, it's very challenging,
it's atmospheric.
It's atmospheric. It's a very good choice of word.
Thank you.
It's one we've enjoyed during October.
Since the beginning,
outside of October, and really, since the beginning of our journey into board games. It is a scenario-based kind of campaign game, I guess, episodic.
It's Lovecraftian.
Lovecraftian theme, where you are going around uncovering puzzles and trying to complete objectives depending on the scenario, fighting baddies, rolling dice, using items, and piecing together, like I mentioned, a puzzle that you need to solve.
We could not have this game on this list, like Jeff mentioned. It's one of our favorite games. And we finally, this year, got to revisit it, because it had been a little bit over a year since we played it, and it still holds up, and all it did was make me want to go buy all of the expansions that we don't have. It's so good.
The only thing about this game that I don't like is the minis.
Ugh. Woof.
God, the minis suck.
They're terrible.
I would love a third.
The minis are scary, because they fall apart.
I would love a 3rd edition where they fix that.
All right, Jeff, next one on your list, since that was our duo. If there's any crossover, we'll just do them at the same time.
I don't know if this one's on your list. I'm assuming it is. But the second one, again, not really a surprise, is Cthulhu Death May Die.
Not on my list.
Okay. Cthulhu Death May Die is a somewhat similar game to Mansions of Madness. It's just much more one-shot, I guess. There's not really like a carryover too much in terms of like, maybe in story a little bit, but like you're not really playing episodes. It's really a one-shot thing, and then you move on to the next whatever thing you want to do. Cthulhu Death May Die is a dice chucker battle game where, similar to Mansions of Madness, you are going to jump into a scenario. There is basically kind of 2 things that you need to do. You need to navigate this little like world that you're in and basically summon the big baddie to the board eventually by doing a ritual or completing rituals depending on the scenario playing. And the big baddies, at least in Season 1, Cthulhu Death May Die Season 1, are Cthulhu, Haster, and I think that's it. I think there's those only the two. We have Cthulhu Death May Die Season 2. We have not played it yet. But basically, you summon those, so you're doing a bunch of things. You're fighting a bunch of people on the board. You're upgrading your character. They're going a little bit more insane. And what's really cool is the insanity track actually, like...
helps.
Increases your
it's like
power.
It makes you braver.
And, but you don't want to go too insane, because if you go too insane, then you actually lose the game.
Yeah, you'll die.
But it's really just super chaotic fun, where you're just getting so many dice, and you're rolling huge, massive amounts of damage on some really big baddies, and it's just kind of silly, dice chucky fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my next one on my list is going to be a classic called Horrified. Not on your list. Jeff's not a huge fan of Horrified. I personally love Horrified.
If we could ever play Terrified, I feel like it would be something.
Could be. Who knows? But Horrified is like my preference. So there's the classic Universal monsters. There's American monsters. There's a new one called Greek monsters, which I haven't played yet. My preference is always going to be the... That's a bigger fly. Oh, sorry.
What was the best outcome of that, you think?
I was going to smush the fly.
Dead fly on my sweater.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on my hand. Anyways, my preference is always going to be the Universal monsters because they're just classic. And this is a cooperative game where you are fighting as the townspeople trying to defeat a certain number of Universal monsters. Mm-hmm. You may or may not have seen a playthrough, or there may be a playthrough coming of this on BGG in my series called Solo Mode. So you keep your eyes peeled for that.
Check that out.
Okay, check that out. Anyways, it is super fun. I enjoy playing this solo. I enjoy playing it co-op. I think that it's one that you can play with anybody because the rule set is relatively simple, but the game itself, very difficult to win. Mm-hmm. So it's very challenging, which kind of makes you want to keep coming back for more. But I love the theme. It's beautiful, this game.
And all the monsters have like little asymmetrical abilities and different win conditions and stuff.
Exactly, yes.
So,
super duper
fair
fun.
amount of variability.
Very much variability, and I love it.
Very much variability.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up for me is the most recent game we've played. One of them that I think is on this list. I don't know the full title of this, but I'm going to call it Psychic
this
Pizza
is on
Ghosts.
mine. It's called Psychic Pizza Deliverers Go to Ghost Town, and this is also on my list.
So in Psychic
Pizza Deliverers Go to Ghost Town,
you are basically, one person is playing as a DM.
The mayor.
Which is really cool, and I know might not work for a lot of people. You have to have someone that's willing to be the DM, the mayor.
But it's very easy. Very easy to do.
And I also think very fun.
Yes.
I haven't done it. Jamie has.
Yes.
But basically, they're going to create this map behind their little screen. Mm-hmm. And everyone else is going to be doing a...
blind movement.
It's not a flip and move.
Yes,
it's not a roll and move. It's an end move.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask Jamie, hey, I would like to go north. Mm-hmm. And Jamie is going to come back to me and say, you can move north.
Yes. Success.
And you will move north. But there's like ghosts in the town. There's fences. Mm-hmm. There's other things that are there's portals that can like teleport you. And everyone around the board is on the same grid. They're in the same town. And ultimately, all you're trying to do is deduce by going in certain directions. You're trying to find your pizza that you need to deliver. Mm-hmm. And then once you have your pizza, you need to find the house.
The correct house.
The correct house to deliver the pizza.
Yeah.
So there's, in a 3-player game with a DM, there would be 3 pieces of pizza on the board and 3 houses.
Yeah.
So for example, I could find my piece of pizza and Jamie would confirm that I have indeed found the pizza that I need to deliver. And then I could go to a house and Jamie would be like, you have found a house. Unfortunately, it's not your house.
You can't deliver the pizza there.
And then you need to keep kind of going around. It's a deduction movement game. Mm-hmm. It sounds silly, and it is
silly.
But man, did I have a blast playing it.
It's hilarious to be the mayor and to watch, like, when I know someone's about to go into a portal and it's going to zip them to the other side of the board, and then they have to start a whole new... Because all of the pizza delivers have like a whiteboard. So they're kind of mapping out like everything that I'm saying as they're going around. It is so much fun. And it like, if you want to be the DM, it is not complicated. Like there's so few rules that you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just fun to play as that role, watching people do all the things. Like our game that we played recently, Zach, Matt, and Jeff all found their pieces of pizza and all went to each other's houses. And I was like, not your house, not your house. Jeff went to 2 that weren't his.
I could not find the 3rd.
Yeah, it's a blast. It's from All Play, which used to be boardgametables.com.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it and you're like, this game looks so silly. It is silly, but it is so much fun.
Yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Next up on my list is a game that we actually recently featured the expansion for, and that is Vagrant Song. Vagrant Song is a campaign boss battler where you are all playing as vagrants with asymmetrical abilities. You are collecting gear and all of these upgrades, ability upgrades, and you're fighting all of these bosses. And it's super thematic, and it kind of, you're on this ghost train, and you're basically trying to bring the ghosts back to humanity without losing your own humanity, becoming westbound and becoming the ghost yourself.
Yeah.
It's got old-timey cartoony art. I know there's a word for it, but I don't know what it is. And it's super fun. One, we haven't had a chance to dip into super deep. Like, we have not completed it. We've played the expansion stuff. We've played on and off of the base stuff. It's one I very much enjoy. And I like the cartoony, spooky feel of it.
Yeah. I feel like this could have made my list if we had played more of the campaign. Next one on my list is classic Ghost Stories. I love this game. I want to play it again. I need to feel that kind of pain and disappointment again. We actually have a full playthrough of Ghost Stories.
Ghost Stories also on my list.
Okay, so it's also on Jeff's list. But essentially, this is kind of like a tower defense-esque type of game where you have, you're working cooperatively in a village where you're moving around, and each space that you move to is going to allow you to do a certain thing, like you're going to trigger an action as you have these spirits or these ghosts coming in at you. There's some dice rolling that you have to do, so there is a luck variant. It's like a badge of honor if you win this game, basically, but like it's so challenging, but it's so much fun. I really, really, really love this game.
Been a hot minute since we played that one, but it is very good.
Okay, the next one up on my list, I think is not a crowd favorite, but I really like it. I feel like we may be some of the only people that are like, this is a really good game, and that's The Hunger. And this is from Renegade Games. And it's very similar to the Clank in terms of like you are trying to like go as far as you can while still being able to make it back. So the theme is you're playing as vampires and you're just munching because you're hungry, right? So you're going along from the castle through this like village, through the mountains and then the plains and then the forest, trying to gather, eat as many people as you possibly can, and it's a deck building game. So the people that you're collecting and that you're hunting, you're adding to your hand. Some of them have victory points, some of them are going to allow you to do different abilities, some of them are not so good. You're also collecting like treasures and like doing familiars and doing a bunch of different things. The point of the game though is that you are trying to score as many points as you can, but when the game ends, if you are not in the castle or the graveyard, you turn to dust and you score nothing. So you could have spent the entire game building up all this stuff, but if you didn't turn back quick enough, much like in Clank, then you die. And it's really stressful at the end of the game. The beginning of the game, you're like, beep, 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 I'm gonna eat this person, beep, beep. And then like I almost went to the very end of the board. And I'm like, I can make it back, right? And everyone's like, you're not making it back. I just think it's super fun.
You almost did, though.
I almost did, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost did because I was very, very fast. Not a surprise to anybody, really. But I love this game. I love vampires, though. I love the artwork. It's Richard Garfield, so you can't really go wrong with that. But I enjoy it every time we play it.
Hunger's not on my list, but I also very much enjoy it. Yeah, I don't know why it gets a little bit hate. I think a lot of people just compare it to Clank, and Clank is just such a staple, and it's very good. But I also I don't know, The Hunger's also very good, and I can play both and feel like I'm getting different experiences.
Yeah, we do have the expansion too. It's called High Stakes. It adds werewolves, but we haven't played it yet.
Now, there's 3 lighter card games left, but this is the first of them. And it is and that is called Oh My Brains.
Oh, I left this off and I read it.
Is it Oh My Brains or Oh My Brain? Oh My Brain is a card game where you are trying to get rid of the cards in your hand. You're doing that by playing a series of ascending numbers collectively in the middle of the table, trying to filter through all of your cards. So you'll have a hand of cards, say you start with 6. You're also going to have cards in your graveyard. And you can't start pulling cards out of your graveyard until you only have 3 cards or less than 3 cards left in your hand. You always draw up to 3 from your graveyard. So you want to get rid of your cards down so far that you can start pulling out of your graveyard so that you eventually have no cards left. Obviously, as you can deduce, people are trying to put cards into your graveyard to not let that happen. It is a very mean game. Ultimately, if you end up, the first person to get rid of all their cards ends the round. However many cards you have left in your hand, you're going to lose that many brains. The person with brains left at the end of the game wins. Yeah. That's basically it. There's some other aspects to this. Some cards allow you to roll this dice that maybe break some rules in the game. It's silly, nonsensical fun, but every single time we've played it, I've had an absolute blast. Everyone has fun playing it. We've played it probably 10 times plus now. It always seems to come out non-spooky season, spooky season. If we're looking for a light, fun filler game, Oh My Brain, 25th Century Games fills that void so well.
Yes, and I would definitely, that it should have been on my list. That was a miss by me because it is A+, so good. Next one on my list is a relatively new one to us, and that is Siliconevania. It's on your list?
No.
Oh. So this game, basically, the theme is, you know, Transylvania, it's in the past, too old. So the vampires are trying to, like, make it come back to life. So it's Siliconevania, like Silicon Valley. Like tech boom. So basically, this is kind of a bidding game where and it's bidding and tile placement. It's kind of like Overboss with a bidding element. So basically, you're bidding on different tiles and to add into your little grid to score points. You're also bidding on different vampires that you're trying to add to your hand that you can then play to bid with. That's kind of the game. It's not really a great explanation, but basically, like, you're going to be scoring different things in your little city or whatever that you're building out based on the types of tiles that you're putting out. And then in order to score those tiles at the end of the game, you have to also save the same color cards. Like, there's a mechanism that does it. Anyways, it sounds complicated, but it's not. It's super, super fun. Love the theme. It's the art by the Miko, so you can't go wrong with that. And I don't know, we've played it a couple times now, and I've had a lot of fun every time.
Yeah, I really like Siliconevania. To Jamie's point, like, there's a lot of combo-iness to this. Tile placement, you know, there's a million of them now, but this one felt unique insofar with the bidding element and the specialists and the bidding cards and the endgame scoring cards that need to come out. There's a lot to think about on every turn. Next up for me is a game we've only played one time. We don't have a copy of this. I really want to get a copy of this. And that is Fearsome Floors.
So good.
Fearsome Floors is like a survival game where you are trying to get out of this arena, basically. And this arena has a programmatic monster that's going to move around in this arena. It's going to, like, bounce off of walls. It's going to go through walls. And ultimately, you are trying to avoid it and get out of the arena while getting everyone else killed, basically. Yeah. It's super fun. It's party adjacent, in my opinion. And there's card play, and it's a Friedman Freeze game, so you know the artwork and everything's a bit on the silly end. We had a ton of fun playing it, and I really desperately want to get a copy so I can show it to more people. But Fearsome Floors, love it.
Next one on my list is Dreadful Meadows. Is that on your list? No. Okay. So Dreadful Meadows is from Arcus Games, and basically this is kind of like a tile placement, but you're building out a meadow, and each of the little tiles produces a different type of candy. And you're activating those tiles in order to activate the candies to get more candies. And you're just like building it out, triggering different things in order to score points. The artwork is amazing. The theme is amazing. We do have a playthrough of this if you're interested in it. I believe it's Kickstarter just fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really happy that more people are going to actually get to play this game. But I love it.
It's Combo City.
Yeah.
And it's very pretty. Like,
very pretty.
It definitely invokes like being a kid on Halloween.
Yeah.
With all the bright color candy and like, yeah.
Yeah, and there are
asymmetrical
different,
abilities.
I was going to say, there's different, the characters each have like slight asymmetrical abilities. And then like, yeah, so you're just, there's a bit of like not an economic, but there's like a market where you're like buying different things. And I would highly recommend it if you have a chance to try it.
I think this one would have been on my list if I'd played it. We haven't played it since last Halloween.
Yeah, we haven't played it since last year.
Next up, second last on the list, definitely requires some thematic invocation by the people around the table, and that is Night Cage.
It's on my list too.
Okay. Night Cage is a tile, another kind of like, it's not really tile placement, but
exploration.
It's like a tile placement exploration game a la Subterra, where you are basically trying to get out of this
Night Cage
arena, Night Cage-esque thing. But the really unique thing about this is you can only see so far in this cage. You're basically playing by candlelight in the game, and you can only see like a couple spaces away. So anytime you move, anything that's 2 spaces behind you is gone. And you no longer know what's there. But you are uncovering things as you go along. You're pulling from a stack of tiles that are acting as the floor, and those tiles could have monsters on them. They could have keys that unlock certain doors for you to be able to get out. There could be pits. Some of the floors crumble if you walk over them. So you cooperatively, because everyone needs to get out, need to like pass keys around, but you can only pass keys if you're next to each other. And like I said, floors can collapse and you can't get through there any longer.
It's stressful.
It's super stressful. I highly recommend playing this game at night by candlelight.
With creepy music
and
on.
They have, don't they have, or was...
No, I think they do have a playlist.
I can't remember if they have a playlist or we just put a random playlist on. But I will tell you, it's probably the most creeped out I've ever been playing a game. It really... Night Cage has a really good way of making you feel like you are not in control, which is similar to like horror movies. One thing I will say about it is there is luck. You are pulling tiles out. And if you get kind of hosed with tile draw, then it's probably going to be tough. But again, I've never felt this kind of spook in a game.
Yeah, I think it helps too, because like we did play it with the candle and the music and everything, which we actually, it was in our spooky game day last year. So you can watch us play it and hear some of the music, and Jason kept like knocking on the table, which was like kind of freaking us out, because we're like, where's that sound coming from?
I think Jason was making a lot of jokes because he was scared.
Probably. Yeah, it's really good though. I would definitely recommend it. You can also play that one solo if you're interested, but definitely I would say like there's very few board games that are actually scary, but that one can give you some like, ooh.
That one gave me some chilly vibes, that's for sure.
I'm just assuming it's Castle Party.
It is Castle Party. Castle Party is a flip and write game where you have a bunch of different monster types and they're going to a party in the castle. And you are basically going to be you're going to be playing out cards that have shapes on them, like Tetris-like shapes.
So in this game, you are pulling a card that has a shape on it. It could be a line, it could be a single square, it could be a box, it could be a zigzag, whatever. Then the active player is going to play a card from their hand of a monster type, which could be a ghost, it could be a vampire, it could be a Frankenstein, it could be a witch, whatever. So they play down a card in a spot that has an X on it. That is the starting spot. Then the next player is going to play a card from their hand, any kind of monster, so long as it touches where you've laid your card, and you're building out the shape that you've revealed in the card until that shape has been completed, and then everybody has to draw that shape in their castle based on how it looks from where they're sitting. So you have to draw it in your castle, you have to draw it with the exact same monsters, unless you do a special action, which could fiddle the monsters around, and there's special events that happen, and all of those things. I love this game. I played it this past weekend. I think it's super fun. It's one of my favorite and writes. It's a flip and write game, and it's one of my favorite ones that I've played, and I will play it any time of year, not even just during spooky season.
Definitely a good one to play with kids.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's a easy version, and then there's a more difficult version as well. We've actually never played the difficult version. The last game on my list is called Campy Creatures. And this is another one that we haven't played since last Halloween, so I'm a little bit rusty on it, but I do remember that I freaking loved it. So the artwork is very like classic movie monsters type of thing, and you're essentially bidding on different victims that you want to take by playing out monster cards, and some of those monster cards could like cancel out, they could like trigger different actions, and everyone starts with the same hand of cards. And so you can kind of like keep track of what the other person is doing, because then you're like, well, I know if Jeff's already played his high card, then I'm going to play my high card. So I'm more likely to get the victims that I want. And there's like some set collection and point scoring. And I just love the theme. We've only played it at 2 players. This is one that I would love to play with more people, because I think the more people you play this with, the better it would be. Last
one up for me is Return to Dark Tower, which is a game we've only played one time. I wanted to return to
Dark Tower,
but also a little bit more grandiose game. Return to Dark Tower is a cooperative game where you are playing like asymmetrical characters, and there's a bunch of different scenarios that you can play. It's somewhat similar to like Cthulhu Death May Die or stuff like that, where you're playing out a scenario, completing objectives, which like might trigger something that come out on the board, like an endgame boss, and then you need to defeat that endgame boss. It's got this really cool tower in the middle, like lights up and spits these skulls out. Like if you're looking for like just like over the top production with like crazy stuff happening, I think that would be one that would be really cool to play with like kids and stuff, because that tower is insane.
Very thematic. And it also makes creepy sounds, which helps.
Yeah, and it does have an app as well, which always helps with immersion, in my opinion.
Same. Cool. So those are our favorite spooky season Halloween board games. We would love to know in the comments below, what are some of your favorites? Are there any that weren't on our list that you are surprised that they weren't on our list? We would love to know. Keeping in mind, though, we have not played every game, and also our opinions are different than your opinions, and that's okay.
Yes.
Right? Cool. So if you're interested in buying board games like any of the many we mentioned today, you should first start by checking your friendly local gaming store. And for us, that is
the Boardroom Game Cafe.
Heck yeah, it is. Do you like snacks?
I do.
Where do people find snacks?
Lunch pack.
Perfect.
You had it. You just didn't squish it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see,
please subscribe.
We hope to see you again soon. And now we say goodbye. Goodbye.
Later days.
That fly is in here again. You did put something on the garbage can, right? Okay. Juno got into some spicy sauce tonight.
Yeah,
so
she did.
She has spicy feet, and I don't want her to get any more. Stupid fly literally wasn't down here all day long.